library friends, Miss Becky here, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet a small plush cat. Creating small stuffies in crochet is called Amigurumi, and it's a style that originated in Japan. The name Amigurumi comes from the Japanese word ami, meaning crochet or knitted, and nugurumi, meaning stuffed doll. The pattern we're using today is one that I made, but I was very inspired by a pattern from a crochet blog called A Little Love Every Day, so I wanted to give a shout out to them. Their crochet blog post is linked below, as well as the pattern that I made. Let's get started. For this project, we need a number 4 medium yarn. We want an acrylic or cotton yarn, something that isn't too fuzzy so it's easy to work with. Then we'll need a size E, which is 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. Amigurumi uses a small hook to ensure that the stuffing doesn't fall out of our finished product. We'll also need stuffing, safety eyes, a yarn needle, embroidery floss, and scissors. The acrylic yarn is going to be the main color of your cat, and the embroidery floss is going to be stripes on the cat. I chose to use a light yellow color for my body and a light orange for the stripes, so that way my final product will resemble my own cat, Jonas, who is a buff color. If this is your first time reading a crochet pattern, the abbreviations might not make any sense, so here's what you need to know. The abbreviations used in this pattern are R1, which means row 1. The same goes for R and then any number, so that's row 1, 2, 3, etc. SC, which means single crochet. INC, which means increase. This is when you crochet 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch. In other patterns, this process is sometimes abbreviated as 2SC in next ST. Then we have SC2TOG, which means single crochet 2 together. This is also known as a decrease and is sometimes abbreviated as DEC. The number in parentheses at the end of each row is the total number of stitches in that row. If this is your first time crocheting, it might be helpful to watch additional tutorials and look into additional resources if you're having a hard time getting started. It took me several tries to learn how to crochet. For a long time, I didn't think I could do it, but then it finally clicked. So I've linked my Intro to Crochet Google Doc in the video description, so feel free to check that out to see other tutorials and diagrams from books that we have at the library. I will also say that I'm not necessarily a master crocheter. I'm self-taught, so if there's anything that I'm doing, if you have crocheted before, if you learned how to do what I'm doing differently, I would say go ahead and do it whatever way you feel the most comfortable with. Okay, so to get started, we have to hold our crochet hook. So some people kind of hold theirs like a knife, which is kind of, I think, how I hold mine. I like to hold mine tilted on the side, and I use my finger here to kind of help with my tension of the yarn and to kind of move the yarn and keep it in place. But just try different ways if this is your first time crocheting, so that way you're holding the hook in a way that feels comfortable for you. There are different ways to kind of start crocheting, but for this project we're actually going to use the magic ring. If you've seen my other crochet videos, we did not use the magic ring to get started because I wasn't comfortable with it yet, but I have finally gotten to a point where I feel pretty good with it, so I will show you how to do that now. You're going to start with the end of your yarn pinched between your thumb and your pointer finger, and then you're going to use your middle finger as well, so we'll be using these 3 fingers. We're going to take our yarn, kind of bring it diagonally towards our fingernails, then underneath both our pointer and middle finger, and then back around towards our knuckles. So there we have an X. Now you're going to take your crochet hook, put it under the X, bring it up to grab that piece of the X right there, and then bring it under. Now we're going to move up and grab this piece again, yarn over. That's what it's called when you get that yarn in your hook. So it's kind of nestled in that hook, and then pull it through that small circle. So what we did just there is we made a chain. We chained one. That helps keep this whole situation kind of in order. When we take our fingers out, we want to keep this circle how it is, with this piece of yarn kind of twisted in there and coming out of the circle that way. This allows us to pull that main circle tighter and make it smaller. So when we do our first row in the magic ring, we're crocheting around here. So being able to pull that tighter makes it so that way our crochet kind of starts with no hole in the middle. The other way to start crocheting in a circle leaves a hole in the middle, so that's the benefit of doing the magic ring. When you start crocheting here, we're going to do a single crochet around this start of our magic ring. So to do that, we take our hook, we put it through the center of the circle, we yarn over, so we're grabbing that yarn and pulling that back out of the circle. So now we have 2 loops on our crochet hook. We're going to yarn over again, so we're going to bring that yarn over the crochet hook so it's kind of nestled in the little hook, and we're going to pull this through both of those loops, just like that. So that is a single crochet, and that's our first stitch on our magic ring. Now we're going to go ahead and do that again into the center of the circle, yarn over, pull that yarn out of the circle, yarn over. We have 2 loops on our hook, we yarned over, and we pull that through both loops on our hook. Now as I'm going on my magic ring, I kind of like to look at my stitches and make sure that they're both kind of facing the same way, and then I like to adjust this, make the circle a little bit tighter, and make sure everything's kind of looking all right. If this is your first time crocheting, you might not know what all right looks like, so just do your best to keep going. Let's do this one more time here. We're going to put our crochet hook into the center of the ring, yarn over, pull it back out of the ring. We have 2 loops on our hook, we yarn over, we pull through both loops on our hook. Now that I have 3 stitches on my magic ring, I like to kind of pull it pretty much all the way closed. When we do our cat, we start with 6 single crochets on here. So right now we have 3, that's 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do 3 more to get started with our cat's body. So we can still see where the center of our magic ring is, even though it's so much smaller. We go ahead and go into the ring, yarn over, pull back out, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Enter, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. And we have one more stitch to do, but before I do the last stitch in my ring, I like to pull it even tighter, so that way this last circle kind of helps, or this last stitch kind of helps complete the circle. In, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Again, pull that nice and tight, and that is how we start with 6 single crochets in a magic ring, and this is going to be the start of the body of our cat. Alright, so we're going to get started on the body of our cat. And we're starting on our pattern. You can see that row 1 is 6 single crochet in a magic ring. So that's what we just did. And if you hold it on the edge, you can kind of count those stitches. You can see they kind of look like a braided material. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This tiny little bump here is where we did like a chain at the beginning of our magic ring. That'll kind of get hidden as we continue on. But anyways, that is the 6 stitches around the outside of our magic ring. If you can't tell where your stitches are, you might have used too tight of tension. That was one of my problems when I first started crocheting. My tension was just way too tight. I couldn't tell where my stitches were. You might want to start over from the beginning and try and work more loosely. If you do need to start over at any point, you can just take your crochet hook out of that loop and pull the yarn that's connected to your main ball of yarn. That's called your working strand. Just pull the working strand and you'll see all of your stitches slowly come undone, and you can start over from the beginning. Same thing, if you pull slowly, you can undo 1 stitch at a time. So if you've messed anything up, you can just slowly unpull and start over from wherever you need to. Okay, so when we're going into row 2, what we're going to do is we're going to increase in each stitch. So that means in each of these stitches, instead of just doing 1 single crochet stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochet stitches in each one. Okay, so this is our first stitch right here, and where we insert our hook, you can kind of see there's a bit of a smooth part here, and then we've got like 2 little yarn sections right there. We push it up along that smooth part and put it into those 2 little pieces there. That's where the stitch is. If you're not quite sure, you can take time, pull at your piece, move things around until you can really see where those stitches are, and then you can start working. So we're going into our first stitch. We're going to put our crochet hook in, then we yarn over, so that's bringing our yarn around, getting it into the little nook of our hook, pull our hook back out, and now we have 2 loops on our hook. We yarn over and we pull that yarn through both loops on the hook. So that was our first stitch, and again we're doing 2 stitches in each one because we are increasing. Okay, so now we're going to go back into that same stitch again, yarn over, pull through. Sorry, I'm going a little wonky on where I'm located in the screen. Yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. Okay, so that was our first increase. Now we're going to move over to our second stitch and we're going to do the same thing. Go in, oops, yarn over, come back out, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. You're going to do it another time in the same stitch to increase. So in, yarn over, back out, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. Okay, so what we just did is we did 2 increases, so that means we have a total of 4 stitches done in this row. If you look at your pattern, you'll see that we are increasing in all of our stitches, and we're going to have a total of 12 stitches when we're done with this row. For me, the best way to keep track of my stitches, and it really is important to keep track, is to count each stitch I do. That can be hard for some people. So if it is hard for you, you'll want to use something to mark where the beginning of your row was. And one second, because I have a paper clip that I can show you. So like I said, we have 4 stitches on our row so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If I think I might have trouble counting, I can put this paper clip right on that first stitch in my row. It doesn't want to work well, but you get, there we go. You get the idea. You could put a paper clip, a safety pin, or they make stitch markers that are used for that. You could put that in the first stitch in your row and then just increase in each stitch until you get to the end and you don't need to count. But like I said, I like to count them. I feel like I keep good track that way and the stitch markers bug me. So I'm not going to use a stitch marker in this video. I just wanted you to know that that was an option if that's what works best for you. Okay, so we are just going to continue our increases. I'll demonstrate it one more time, walking you through it. So we're on to our next stitch, and we do 2 single crochets in that row. So enter the stitch, yarn over, pull through. You now have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. We're going to do that again. So into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. So that's 6 stitches total. We're halfway done with this row. Just increase in the next 3 stitches and you will be done with row 2. Okay, now we're going to move on to row 3. So again, you can count the stitches around the outside of your work to make sure that you have 12 stitches in row 2. And if you do, you're ready to start row 3. Row 3 is a regular single crochet stitch and then an increase stitch. And then a single crochet stitch, increase, etc. until we have 18 stitches around the outside. So we start with our first stitch and we're just doing a regular single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull through. We have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook. Now we're moving on to our next stitch where we're going to increase, so that's 2 single crochet stitches into this one stitch. So we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops, and again into that same stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. All right, so now at our next stitch, we're doing a single crochet. So we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. And now we're going to do an increase again. So insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Now if you get a little bit lost and confused, like, oh wait, did I just do an increase stitch or did I do a regular single crochet stitch? You can examine your stitches, kind of pull them apart and see, does it look like that this is the area where we did our last stitch? Does it look like there's 1 stitch in there or is there 2? And do your best to figure that out to see where you're at. But again, if you lose track, you're not sure where you're at, and you need to go back a few stitches, you can just pull out your crochet hook, pull on that your working yarn, and undo a few stitches. Okay, but we just have a little bit left to go until we finish row 3, so we're going to continue doing that pattern with a single crochet and then an increase until we have a total of 18 stitches around the outside of our work. Okay, so once you've finished row 3, we're on to row 4. To make sure you finished row 3 correctly, you can count the stitches around the outside of your work. You should have 18. In row 4, the pattern that we're doing is a single crochet, then an increase, and then a single crochet. And we're going to repeat that 6 times, giving us 24 stitches around our outside. So let's get started. In our first stitch, we're just doing a single crochet. So we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops are on your hook, yarn over, pull through, both loops on your hook. In our next stitch, we're doing an increase, so you insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through, and then since it's an increase, we do that one more time into that same stitch, insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And then we're doing one more single crochet into the next stitch, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Okay, so that gives us a total of 4 stitches in this row, and that was the first time that we did that single crochet, increase, single crochet pattern. So we're doing that 5 more times, or we're getting to 24 total stitches. However you like to keep track, go ahead and do that, but you're just repeating that around to finish up row 4. So now we're starting row 5, and row 5 through row 11 are just single crocheting around and just doing, one for one, 24 stitches around, and we're doing 7 rows of that. What I like to do is I like to count out 24, and then I always make a tally mark once I finish one row, so that way I don't forget how many rows I've done. So you just work around, make a tally mark, work around and do that 7 times. We'll do a quick refresh on how to do the single crochet here. So we start with our first stitch, we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through. So now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on that hook. And now we're moving on to our next stitch, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. So that was 3 stitches. And again, you're working around for 24 stitches, and that gives you 1 row, and we're doing 7 of these rows. So once you finish all 7 rows, I'll meet you back here for the next step. Okay, so when we started row 5, we looked like this. We had a circle, but as we keep going up and up until we finish row 7, since we're not increasing anymore, we kind of get those sides, and what we have now looks like a little basket. But what we're going to do is we're going to start decreasing to round him out on the end of his body. And here, I can show you. We're rounding him out to take him from this to this. So that's our goal as we start off row 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet, then single crochet 2 together. So we're going to decrease, and then we're going to single crochet again. And we do that 4 times, leaving us with a total of 18 stitches in this row. So starting out in our first stitch, we're just doing a regular single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook into this stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on the hook. Now we're doing our decrease. So in our next stitch, we're inserting our hook, yarning over, pulling through, and then before we yarn over again, we're actually going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through. We now have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through all 3 loops on our hook. So what we just did is we took these 2 stitches and we turned them into a single stitch. And now we're going to single crochet again. Okay, so that's our pattern. We've done it 1 time. We're going to keep doing it around the outside. So we start with a single crochet. And now we do that decrease. So we insert our hook into the next stitch, we yarn over, pull through, and now we insert our hook into the following stitch, yarn over, and pull through. We have 3 loops on our hook, we yarn over, and we pull through all 3 loops. And then we do another regular single crochet. Okay, so we've done that 2 times now. We're going to do that 2 more times. And we will be finishing off row 12. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you back here at row 13. Okay, so now we finished row 12, so we should add our eyes. And so I put the eyes between row 7 and 8. So to find that, you count down from the top. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's 8, so I put them right about there. But you can really place them anywhere you want. I like them a little bit further down and a bit wider apart. I think that looks pretty cute, but you can put your eyes in whatever place you think looks cute. So I'm going to put them there, and then I spaced them about 5 stitches apart. So once you get in, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're inserting the eyes into like the holes that already exist between stitches. So we're not like poking any holes or anything. They should kind of just slide right in. And I like to place them both before I put the backs on to make sure that I like how they look together. So once you like how they look, you can then kind of turn your work inside out a little bit and put the backs on. So we have these black pokey parts of our safety eyes and then these plastic fasteners that go on. But before you put it on, make sure you really like where they're placed. The reason why these are called safety eyes is because these backings do not come back off. They stay on. They're safe, so that way small children don't pull the eyes off and then choke on them. So once you put this backing on, it's not coming off. Make sure you like where it is. Then go ahead and put that backing on, and you'll have to push pretty hard to get it closed all the way. Some safety eyes are easier than others. I've had ones that are really difficult to put on. These aren't so bad, so go ahead, get that on. It's good to push with both of your thumbs. There we go. And now his eyes are on, and we can start our next row. Okay, so now we're starting row 13. Again, we are decreasing, so we're going to do a single crochet, then single crochet 2 together, and that is the pattern we're doing. Single crochet 2 together, then single crochet 2 together. So this row will have one less of the regular single crochet stitches in it than our previous row. But we're doing that 6 times to get a total of 12 stitches. So go ahead and start with a single crochet, and then a decrease. So we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, then go to the next stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, now we do a regular single crochet, and then another decrease. So in our next stitch, we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on our hook, we yarn over and we pull through all 3 loops. And then again, a regular single crochet and another decrease. Okay, so now we just need to do that, I think, 3 more times until you have 12 stitches around the outside. Okay, now we have 12 stitches around the outside, so we're going to do our final row, row 14, And in this one, we're doing a decrease for every stitch until we have just 6 stitches left around the outside. So we are inserting our hook, yarning over, pulling through, and then moving on to the next stitch. Insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And then again, decreasing. Gets a little tricky here as you get a smaller and smaller circle to work with, but just take it nice and slow. We got to do that 3 more times until we just have 6 stitches left. Okay, so once you finish row 14, you can fasten off. We still have a hole that, in my opinion, is big enough to add stuffing. So we'll fasten off, stuff it, and then kind of sew up the rest of that hole. So to end this, we are going to do a slip stitch. To do that, we just take our hook where it is, yarn over, and pull that through the loop on our hook. Now we'll cut this, but we want to leave our tail pretty long so that way we have some yarn to work with when we're sewing. So go ahead and cut that. And then we still got that loop there, so we're going to finish pulling the rest of the yarn all the way through that loop. And that slip stitch ended up working as a knot. Now we'll go ahead and put our stuffing in here. And once you've done that, I'll show you how to sew up the rest of the hole. Okay, so now he is all stuffed. So we're going to take this tail of yarn, put it through our handy dandy yarn needle, and then we're going to stitch all of these together. So we're going to put our, let's see, I'll go in this direction. I'm going to put our yarn needle through 2 stitches and bring them together, and then again 2 stitches, bring them together. Just keep doing that to slowly close that hole up. And you can see as you're pulling it then, it's getting smaller. You can do that a few more times or even start going across different sections of the hole to help get it as small as possible. Once you're happy with that, you will tie off this yarn into a knot. To do that, I kind of just bring it through a few stitches to make a little loop. And then once you have a loop, the easiest way to make a knot is to bring your yarn through that loop 3 times and then just pull, and you have a knot. And then we can hide this knot and this tail by taking our yarn needle, putting it into our cat, and popping our needle out some other place on the cat, opposite side of the cat. Pull it through. On the bottom where our yarn was, we can't see that knot or that tail anymore. And then we snip off the yarn right here. We kind of smush our cat, move him around. Boom, a hidden tail. So now it's time to make our cat's appendages, which include 2 ears, 4 legs, and a tail. We're going to start with the ears. They'll end up looking like this, which is kind of a cone shape. And we kind of fold it in half so it makes a nice little triangle shaped ear. So to start, we're going to take our yarn and we're starting with a magic ring, just like we did with the cat's body. So to do that, again, we're using these 3 fingers. We put our yarn between our pointer finger and our thumb, then bring it up towards our fingernails, down and around, and then across and towards our knuckles, creating an X. Now we take our crochet hook, we put it underneath the X, grab that upper left segment of the X, pull it under, and then we chain 1. And we can very carefully take this circle off of our fingers. Make sure, yep, there we go. We pull that tail and our circle closes, so we know our magic ring is going to work. And now we're going to crochet 4 single crochets. So we take our hook, we put it into the center of our ring, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And again, when we're doing the ring after each stitch, I like to make sure that it's lined up correctly, that it's looking good, because things can get a little wonky. So that's 1. 2, pull the tail to close the ring a little bit, then enter the ring, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. That's 3. Now we'll pull the tail almost all the way closed and do 1 last single crochet. Okay, so now we have 4 single crochets in a magic ring, and what we're going to do for row 2 is single crochet, then increase. So let's find that first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. I kind of got this weird little loop there, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go into my first stitch. And my tension was a little bit tight, so this might get tricky. There we go, so go into the first stitch and single crochet, so yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, onto our next stitch where we're going to do an increase. So that's 2 single crochet stitches into this 1 stitch. So we insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through, and then again into that same stitch. Insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. So we finished that first pattern where we did single crochet and then increase, and now we're going to do it 1 more time. So in that next stitch we just do a regular single crochet, and then in our final stitch we're doing an increase. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see where everything is when you're working with such small pieces. And there we go. Okay, so that's rows 1 and 2. And now we just have our third row, which is going to be the same thing we did in the second row, where it's going to be single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, and we're going to end up with 9 total stitches in that row. And once we get done, that last row, we'll kind of take this and really turn it into that cone shape. Single crochet, and okay. So once you finish the third row, you're going to fasten off the end by doing a slip stitch. So that's where we yarn over and pull through, and then we're going to cut right here. We're going to leave a long tail because we're going to use this tail to help sew our ears onto our cat. So leave a nice long tail, and leave this tail that started from the beginning when you started your ear. We'll use both of these to help secure our ears onto our cat. Once you finish this process, repeat it a second time so that way you have 2 ears for your cat. Alright, so now we're going to make our tail. To do this, we're going to do 6 single crochets in a magic circle. In row 2, we're going to increase a little bit, and then it's basically 13 rows that just go straight down. And you could do more or less rows depending on how long you want your tail to be. So let's get started. Again, we're starting with that wonderful magic ring. So we're using these 3 fingers. You're going to pinch the tail of your yarn between your pointer finger and your thumb. Then bring that yarn up and over towards your fingernails, down and around, then up and over towards your knuckles, creating an X. Take your crochet hook, put it under that X, grab the working strand and bring it under the X with your crochet hook, and then do 1 chain. So grab that working strand again, yarn over, and pull it through the loop on your hook. 1 second. You do that again, but I'll do it quick. Okay. crochet, yarn over, and pull that through to chain one. Now that you've got that in place, you can carefully take the ring off your fingers, pull that tail to make sure your ring can close, and then we're doing 6 single crochets around the outside here. So we insert our hook into the center of the ring, yarn over, pull through. Now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through, both loops on your hook. Again, adjusting after each stitch to make sure it's laying correctly. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, and now since we have just one last stitch left, let's really cinch that up and make this last stitch really complete the circle. I cinched mine so tight, I'm now having a hard time. There we go. Okay, so that is our first row. Now for row 2, we're doing a single crochet, then an increase, and a single crochet until we have 8 stitches in our circle. So we find our first stitch, insert our hook. My tension was kind of tight that round, so that's why it was hard for me to insert my hook there. There we go. Next stitch, we're doing an increase, so we're gonna single crochet 1 and then single crochet again into that same stitch. Okay, and then we're doing a single crochet and then an increase, and then one more time we're doing that same process. So single crochet in the next stitch, and then an increase in the next stitch. So that's 2 single crochets and a single stitch. Okay, so now we have 8 stitches around our outside circle, and that's all we're gonna have for this cat's tail. We're just making a tube now. So we're gonna do about 13, or would that be maybe like 15 rows now that I think about it. I think I had a typo in my pattern. So like 15 rows just going around the outside, and you're gonna make a really long tube. It can get a little tricky when you're doing this because you're working on a circle that's so small and it's not getting any bigger, but just go nice and slow, take your time. And what I like to do is for this, since it can be a little bit frustrating working on something so small, I don't even count my stitches. I just go around and around until I get to a length of tail that I like, and once I think it's long enough, then I'm done. And to fasten off, once you get to that point when you're done, you're gonna do the same thing that we've done to fasten off before, which is doing a slip stitch. That's where you yarn over and pull through, And again, when you get to that point, you're going to want to leave yourself a nice long tail on your yarn, so that way we can use that to sew the cat's tail onto its body. And this is what your tail should look like when you're ready to fasten off. Okay, so now that we have our tail completely crocheted, we're going to stuff it. So it's a little bit tricky to stuff it since we have like a pretty small narrow tube, but we can use a pencil or a pen, something like that, to help us push the stuffing in. So we just need a little bit of stuffing for this, and it's best to work a little bit at a time. So go ahead and start getting that into your tail. Once you have it started, use your pencil to push all of that stuffing in. Then take a little bit more, get it started, and then use a pencil to push it in. It can be kind of hard to decide how much stuffing you need, so go ahead and kind of test it as you go. If you have less stuffing in there, it'll be pretty floppy, but if you have this crocheted pretty tightly and you put a good amount of stuffing in, it lets you kind of bend the tail a little and get it into a little curve shape, and it kind of stays in that position. If you do too much stuffing, it might be hard to bend it, and too little stuffing will have it more floppy. So it's really trying to find a nice balance of stuffing. I'm going to put a little bit more in here. And then kind of squish it around so that way it doesn't look like there's just 3 lumps of stuffing in there. You can see it's kind of stuffed good enough to bend. I think I'm going to leave it at that point. Okay, so now we're going to make our cat's legs. We're making 4 of these, but it's really easy because his leg is just a magic ring. So it is a magic ring with 5 single crochets in it. So let's get our yarn and start that magic ring. These 3 fingers, pinch the end of the yarn between your pointer and your thumb, then bring it up and over towards your nails, down and around and towards your knuckles, creating an X. Take your crochet hook, put it under the X, reach up and grab that bit of yarn, and then we're going to chain 1, maybe. There we go. Now very carefully take it off your fingers. Make sure that everything's situated good. Test it to make sure it can close. And now we're going to single crochet 5. So enter your hook into the ring, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through. Okay, so that's 4. So now we're gonna kind of close up our circle and do our final one. And 5. Now, sometimes in crochet, if you're doing a circle like this, you might join this end with this end to make it like a full circle. But in this case, it's better to have one side of our circle kind of flat because that will help us attach this flat side to our cat's body, and then the circle side will be like the paw that's placed outwards, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, you'll see in a second. But we're just going to fasten off his paw now. So we do a slip stitch, which is just yarn over, pull through, and then pull that down. And again, we want to leave a nice long tail to help us sew these paws on. So that's our first leg paw thing, and now we're gonna do 3 more of these, and then we'll attach all of our cat's appendages. Okay, now it's time to attach our cat's appendages. For this step, we'll need all of our crocheted parts as well as our yarn needle, and we'll want to have scissors nearby too. I'll start by showing you how to do an ear, and I think once you see how to attach the ear, you'll kind of know what to do for all of the other pieces. So for the ears and the legs, you should have kind of 2 pieces of yarn. One is the tail from when you created your magic ring, and the other is the tail from when you fastened off. This shorter tail we're going to use as an anchor to help keep our ear in place. So I'm going to go ahead and thread that tail through my yarn needle, and then start figuring out where I want this ear to go on my cat. So which way do I want it to face? Do I want it to be this way? Do I want it to be that way? Where do I want it placed? I like mine to kind of be right near row 1 at that point, and kind of in the center of his head. So once I have that roughly put into place, I'm going to use this tail to anchor it. So I'm going to take my yarn needle with that tail in it and just push it all the way through my cat. There we go. So that helps keep my ear in place while I then use this tail to sew around the outside. I will say, depending on how tight your crochet stitches are, it can be a little bit tricky to get this yarn needle through. So just, it takes some patience. So go ahead and thread your tail. Now we're going to start on this side over here. I like to see, where is this coming out of the ear, and how can I best thread this through so that way the overall shape of the ear is what I want. So that's why I'm starting on the back. I want this to come through this way. And you're just going to bring your tail through a stitch on the body, or bring your needle through a stitch on the body, and then up through a stitch on the ear, and pull that all the way through. There we go. So now we're over on this side, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring it down through the body, and then up through the ear, and pull that all the way through. So it's a really simple stitch. It's nothing specific. You're basically just threading the yarn through the stitches on the body and through the stitches on the ear. And since the yarn is the same color and you're kind of working through the holes that are already there because of your crochet stitches, it should more or less blend in to your cat. If a stitch doesn't look good, I would try and undo that one as soon as possible. Once you get all of the stitches onto your cat, it can be hard to undo them and hard to see where each stitch is. So really taking it one at a time and assessing your progress as you go and correcting any mistakes as soon as possible will make the whole thing easier for you. Okay, I'm just gonna do maybe 1 or 2 last stitches here. Okay, so this is the last place I'm gonna have my thread coming out of my ear, and now I'm gonna work on fastening it off. So to do that, I'm going to bring my needle through one stitch, and I'm not gonna pull it all the way through. I'm gonna leave it so it's making a little loop. The stitch I chose is really close to the edge of my ear, which is what I want because I don't want this like ending of my yarn to be really obvious. So I'm making a little loop there, and then you might remember this from when we tied off our cat's body. The easiest way to make a knot is to bring my needle through this loop 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to pull that really tight. Okay, so I tied that off, and now we're going to take our needle, put it through our cat's body, pull, and we hide that tail in our cat's body. Now from our first tail where we anchored our cat and our second tail that we just hid, we have these extra threads. We're just going to snip them carefully, very close to the body of your cat. And then go ahead and kind of fluff them up a bit, and they should just disappear back into him. If they don't, you can try and trim them shorter, or sometimes I use my needle to try and push them back inside. There you go. So that's how you can stitch the first ear on, do the second ear in the same way, and the legs are very, very similar, but a little bit easier because you really only need like 3 stitches along the leg to secure it into place. And then with the tail, when you attach it onto the back, you're just going to kind of sew around the whole outside of the tail so it's nice and securely on your cat. But you're going to use the same type of stitches. You're going to fasten off in the same way for each appendage. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here to add the final touches to our cat. Okay, so we're going to sew on some details for our cats. You can do whatever details you want, make your cat look however you want. I'm going to show you what I like to do. I like 3 stripes on the top of their head, a mouth, some little stripes on the sides of their eyes, which it could be face stripes, they could be whiskers, who knows? It looks like either. And then 3 stripes on the tail. To do this, we're going to use embroidery thread. I have a light orange thread, which is the color that I want the stripes to be. I'm going to use this same color for the mouth and the whiskers, but if you have more colors at home, you can experiment and try different things. And then we're going to sew using our embroidery needle. So all we have to do for this is thread. This is an embroidery needle, it's a yarn needle. We're gonna sew using our yarn needle. So all you have to do is thread your embroidery thread through the needle, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So for that center stripe, I like it to go into our magic ring. And so choose where you want the lowest point of the stripe to be. I'm going to do right about there and bring it up through that circle. And now we need to tie a knot to secure our thread. Okay, so I'm going to pull this through, and then I'm just going to do a really basic knot, like how you tie your shoelaces. I'm going to cut off that tail, and then I'm going to wiggle this so that way that knot is for the most part on the inside of my cat and you can't see it. Okay, now I'm going to go through these same 2 stitches a few times to make a nice thick stripe. Once you're happy with how thick your stripe is, on your final stitch through there, you're going to put it into like this hoop, this stitch, and then bring it back out, not through our center part, but at the starting point of the next stripe you want to do. Okay, so I want my next stripe to be there, and I want it to be a little bit shorter than this one, so okay, and again on my final stitch of that stripe, I'm going to bring my needle up to the spot for my 3rd stripe. I'll figure out where I want that one to go. That. Okay, and this is going to be the last part for this stripe. So you can kind of do a knot by going through here and doing our little 3-loop procedure, or depending on how active your cat's going to be in his life, you can just trust that this is going to stay pretty secure and just pop it through there. If you're going to give this to a kid and they're going to play with it, I would tie a little knot there. But if he's just going to be a little decoration in your house, boom, your life just got easier. Okay, so those are his 3 head stripes. We're going to do a similar process for the mouth. And if your thread was long enough, you could kind of go straight from that stripe to the mouth. Mine was running out, so I'm gonna cut off a new piece of thread. Okay, so to do his mouth, we just need a little kind of triangle shape, an A shape, going from between our cat's eyes and down about 2 stitches. You can make your cat's mouth look however you want, and I'll show you. I do have a bigger cat. For him, I gave him a little V-shaped nose and an A-shaped mouth. You can try and do both of those. On the small ones, I felt like there wasn't quite enough room for it, so I just did the mouth, but you can experiment, try it, make your cat however you think looks best. Okay, so we're gonna have our starting point be there and there. So we're gonna put our needle through for that first mouth line. And just like we did for our stripe, we're gonna tie a little knot. Okay, so once that knot is in place, try and wiggle this thread to get that on the inside. And then go ahead and make that a little bit thicker. I think I'll go over it like three stitches. It's 2, and this will be my 3rd. So I'm gonna insert it there, but then bring it out where I want the other end of his mouth to be. Think about this. So I'm gonna bring it through for my last stitch. I'm really feeling in this case with the orange thread that if I don't add a nose, he's gonna look like he has a small mustache and not a mouth. So we're going to try doing an upside, or doing a V for his nose at the top of his mouth like I showed you for my larger cat. Let's see how this works. I think that's gonna be good. Okay, so I just need to put this through one more time for the final stitch on his nose, but I do have enough thread to do his little side stripes slash whiskers in this same go. So I'm going to insert it here, but bring it out over on the side where I want his whiskers to be. So there's his mouth and nose. And you can kind of move things around a little bit, fluff it up, smush stitches together, pull them apart however you need to until that thread is really sitting in a way that you like. Okay, now we're gonna do these little stripes here. I'm not placing them in any specific way, just in a way that I think might look good, and that's what I encourage you to do as well. Though they're really giving me more side stripes than whisker vibes in this particular case. Once I'm doing my final stripe on this side, I do still have enough thread to do the other side, so I'm just gonna poke my needle through, try and follow this row, right about there. I just want both sides to be pretty even. Okay, and again, if you think this will end up being a toy for a kid, you'll probably want to do a proper knot to tie this off. But if it won't be, boom, done. Okay, our last step is going to be adding little stripes to the tail, and you're gonna do it in the same way you did the face. And I will meet you back here when you're all done. I hope you enjoyed making this small cat. If you want to make the slightly larger version, you can use the same pattern, but you'll want to use a larger crochet hook and a chunky yarn. But other than that, you can do all the same stitches, the exact same process, and just because it's a larger yarn and larger hook, he turns out bigger. Crochet is a skill that you can continue to build over time, so keep practicing and crocheting. If your cat didn't turn out perfectly the first time, keep trying. And thanks for crafting with me today. We have 2 other crochet tutorials on our channel, an octopus and an owl, so be sure to check those out and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!